Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Online Warriors podcast. Entering the month of June, it is the month of E3, it is the month of summer, one of the many months of summer, and it's time for us to have another of our wonderful Patreon subscribers on the show, specifically a knight. Sir Ben, welcome back. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
And of course, Nerdbomber and Techtic also here as usual, not to sound less excited, but guys, look, I talk to them once a week. I only talk to our Patreon subscribers over the air every so often. So it's just, I'm sorry, it's a little bit more exciting.
Hey, you should be psyched to talk to us every week, man. We bring it.
Okay, it sounds like Nerdbomber is once again feeling it. I am Illeagle86, as ever, your host and your safari driver through the jungles of conversation. Did you guys ever do like African lion safari or like, you know, like those, there's like zoos that do that too, right? Where you can drive and see animals.
Or like at Disney World, they have, what is it, the Jungle Cruise? They're making a whole movie about it, yeah.
And I'm Techtic.
You know what? I definitely said your name, but it might not have been as ceremonious an introduction. We're not gonna try it again. We're not gonna cut and re-record, but I'll just Techtic, how are you?
I'm great.
It's great to have you here. You are a valued part of this team, and don't you forget it. We have some games to talk about today, and this is not E3 week. This is either pre-E3 week or double pre-E3 week, but nonetheless, there's some gaming news in the hopper today. We are going to be talking about some of the PSVR teasers in the spotlight that happened just recently. We're going to be talking a little bit about this Crysis Remastered Trilogy that just got announced, and of course, we have to talk about what Techtic has taken to creatively calling Rom-Dram. And if you don't know what the Rom-Dram is, we're going to get to that. But let's save that for a little bit later. Just I can keep people hanging in suspense for a little bit. And of course, we're also going to hear what everyone's been up to. In particular, Ben has something special for us in the What Are You Up To segment. Looking forward to that. Another teaser. I'm being very, very salacious today. So let's keep that going. By talking first about this PSVR kind of slate of releases here. So this happened kind of as I think also a kind of, these games are going to be showing up at E3, I imagine. But we got a slate of titles, a number of trailers being presented in a spotlight this past Thursday. So let's kind of go through these one by one. Now, Sniper Elite is a big deal, as far as I understand it. This is a franchise that has been around for a minute. I guess, round table to start, has anyone... any one of us here ever played any of the Sniper Elite games? Because I have not.
Considering I'm so into first-person shooters, you would think that I would have, but this is one... I'm not... When I play FPS games, I'm not really into sniping. I've more recently started to appreciate the sniper rifle, but it was a very skill gun in most games, and it annoys me. So, no, I don't play Sniper Elite.
It's a little too patience-oriented for me, and that might be where you were going as well. But like in FPSs... most of the time, I'm a run and gun kind of fella. Techtic, are you crafty, tactical enough to?
So generally,
to
in our any groups that we play together, I'm always the sniper/support role. So games like this excite me. However, this particular trailer did not draw me in. It was something about it just felt off, and it didn't really seem captivating. But I definitely can see, strapping the VR headset and really enjoying this, because I do enjoy the patience and the skill associated with sniping. But it wasn't just sniping. There was a lot of varying different types of guns in it, and it just felt like really just sort of a Call of Duty-esque trailer.
Yeah, so that's why I want to circle back to that. So Ben, Sniper Elite, yes, no? Have you had experience with this? What did you think of this trailer, I guess, also generally?
No, I don't have any experience with sniper games, and I don't really have an opinion on it. It's not something I enjoy. Even when I'm playing first-person, third-person shooters, I tend to stay away from the sniper rifles. Also a run and gun kind of guy.
You're the tank.
Yeah.
There
That's
you go.
Fun.
Yeah. So Techtic, I think you're absolutely right. This is the main point I wanted to make is there's not a lot of sniping. In fact, I think there's more of other things going on than there is of sniping. There's like the thumbnail. I'm looking at the thumbnail for the trailer right now. I have not actually watching the trailer as we speak, but the thumbnail is you're about to hit somebody in the head with literally like a hammer. I guess they teach you that at sniper school. I don't know.
Maybe they have a new sniper rifle that shoots hammers. I mean, you never know.
It could be. You have to establish a good sniping position in some way, and maybe that involves sneaking up on someone and hitting him in the head with a hammer. But I have to agree with you overall, Techtic, in that I wasn't drawn in. It looked like a worse version of Call of Duty. And for that matter, in terms of shooter games in VR, I've had a couple of really good experiences. I liked Farpoint a lot. But the gold standard for me was Superhot. And I'm going to compare, as different as that game was, it's much more abstract. I'm going to compare every shooter to that and ask, does it look as fun? And invariably, at least so far, the answer is no.
Well, I think this game, and this had a lot of story elements that I don't know if I was expecting. I guess I didn't know what to expect from this title when they first even announced it a while back. And it looked like this is a very heavily story-driven game, which is interesting. Like, that part kind of piqued my interest. But I don't know if it's necessarily going to be a fun story, you know?
Yeah. Well, so we can move on. I want to move on from this because it doesn't sound like it really caught any of our attentions. I want to move on to a game that did catch mine. This game is called Wanderer.
Oh, yeah.
It has no specific release date. Summer 2021 is, I think, what the trailer said. It's what IGN is telling me now. This game looks freaking wild. There's no telling what it is. Like, just generally, and I think that's a really, really captivating, at least kind of an MO for a trailer.
In its heart of hearts, it's exactly what I love in video games. I've said this time and time again. It's a puzzle game, and I am a puzzler. I love a good puzzle.
See, I'm not a puzzler, but I like all the different experiences that it seems like you can have. Like, for whatever reason, they have a lot of different clips. Like, you go back in time, you're using an old-timey typewriter to, I think, figure out some, like, German
mystery
decryption or
German
something.
Code cracking.
Right, and there's something with electricity, like an early electric
puzzle
device. Well, I get that, but the thing that really caught my attention, and I don't know why of all things that this was the thing, but there's a concert. Yeah, and you're the drummer. And to me, in VR, that just seems freaking awesome. Like, if we could have...
a puzzle.
Well, yeah, that's not a puzzle. But, like, if we could have a game like Rock Band in VR where you actually are, like, giving a concert, think how awesome that would be. And even if I get a little snippet of that out of Wanderer, that's enough for me. I'm happy. Yeah. I'm going to play this game.
I think the thing that it is really bringing hard is the idea of escapism. Like, it is being billed as a puzzle game at large, I think. They show you solving kind of this Mayan, like, little spinny puzzle thing, too. I'm sure that's mostly what it is, but it just looks kind of like this, like, cinematic time travel-y thrill ride where you don't know what's going to happen next. And I think VR should predominantly be about escapism. So I think they're potentially hitting the nail on the head in that regard. But I want to get Ben's opinion first. Ben, what were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it does look interesting. It looks very much like an escape room kind of game, right?
Yeah, and that's a good parallel to draw too, because I think it would be cool.
Dude, VR escape room.
Yeah, like I love escape rooms. I always have. The one, I guess, I don't know if I'd call it a problem, but one thing that's kind of inherent to escape rooms is you're in one room, right? If you go to a good escape room, there are usually multiple rooms. You'll open a hidden wall or something and go into a different room. And that room may have a different theme, but you're only going to get so many different settings out of an escape room is what I'm getting at. Whereas in a VR game that kind of builds itself as this escape roomy thing, the possibilities are absolutely endless. So yeah, I kind of like that angle on it.
It's a solo too, right? It's not like you're not
that's true
collectively.
Too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm going to put my finger up and come back around to that comment because I think that's a comment that I want to kind of make on another game that was in the showcase. So remember, I had my finger up.
Okay. Well, while we're at it, why wouldn't you just raise your whole hand? Why would you raise one finger?
A tangential.
No, because it's talking about a different game in the showcase, and I'm not ready to move on yet.
So the other comment that I wanted to make was beyond the puzzles and the world jumping and the intricacies in the game, the story just seemed very compelling, but also plot twisty. I mean, you have this mystery that you're trying to solve. This old man is kind of talking you through, and
very cryptically, yeah.
And my money's on the fact that old man is you from the future, and you can just sort of see this plot twisty, exciting twists and turns coming, and I'm here for it. So way to go. Way to go, Wander.
I don't want it to be me because I'm already expecting that, and so are you. But it's a fair point. It's a reasonable prediction based on what we saw from the trailer. So let's keep moving right along here, kind of rapid firing these. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. Correct me if I'm wrong. Arashi, Castles of Sin. This is billed as Ghosts of Tsushima, but you can pet the dog.
This looks cool.
Yeah, well, so I actually did not get a chance to watch the trailer for this one. I just kind of read the synopsis. So I guess Nerdbomber, take the lead here. Did you have your finger up for this one or a different one?
No, I had my finger up for the zombie game, but this game was cool. I mean, it looked like you could channel that Ghost of Tsushima ninja samurai assassin vibe in VR, which I think is cool. One of the things, and this is kind of overarching with all of these games now, that they look like a regular game, but in VR at this point with free motion and everything like that. And one of the things about this game and a lot of the other ones that we saw during the showcase, as awesome as it looked, there are some things, like there's a lot of fast movement, and I'm wondering if I'm going to be nauseous.
Mm-hmm. Which is, I think, typically a concern for you.
Yeah.
Which, that it kind of leads me to a broader point and a broader question. Ben, what is your experience like with VR? Whether you have it or not, or whether you would want to get it, did any of these games have you saying, take my money, or?
No, not really. No. I mean, it's still, to me, sort of a novelty and an expensive one at that.
Sure, yeah.
So the price point on VR is either going to have to come down dramatically, or the game quality is going to have to rise dramatically, and it's just not there yet.
Yeah, well, and I mean, I own VR. I can't disagree with that opinion. I think we've seen a couple of games, and we'll get back to this slate in a second, but I think we have seen a couple of games. I remember in particular when Half-Life Alyx came out, which is totally perpendicular to what we're currently talking about. But when that came out, people were heralding it as like, this is a leap ahead for VR. And I think in a lot of ways it was, but we may not have seen the biggest leap yet that's needed to get people like you or any skeptic kind of on board with this. And also, like you said, the price point is pretty high.
Yeah, but Half-Life Alyx was really close, though. I mean, I have fond memories of Half-Life, and it almost got me there, but still, it's way too expensive for a rig.
Well, that's not even, because we're talking about PSVR here, which is like,
right.
It's still expensive, but it's relatively inexpensive.
Yeah, it's the low end, but it's still a little expensive for me, a little too rich.
I will say, like, these games that we're starting to see for the PSVR, I remember early games for the PSVR when we got it, like, they were kind of rough. Like, you had Skyrim and Doom and stuff, but the majority of your games were either small experiences or not super, like, graphically intensive. And I do start to think, like, we're seeing the things that we saw in this showcase aren't on the level of Half-Life Alyx, but they're getting closer. And I think a lot of these like very story-driven cinematic experiences that look like they have decent graphics and like they could be bigger budget games, I think that is the response to try to bring something like Half-Life Alyx to the PSVR. Because I do think Sony kind of hurt not having that on their platform, because if that would have been an option, I'm sure there are a ton of people who went and bought other VR rigs, even if they already had a PSVR, because Half-Life Alyx was that big of a draw. I mean, the IP alone, I
would have bought it, no doubt. I do agree. I think the arrow is in general pointing up. And, to say that it's a novelty still, I think is perfectly valid. 99%, like Farpoint is the one exception in terms of VR games that I've played that, I guess Squadrons might be close to, but like most VR games that I played are very arcadey. I just mentioned Superhot as one of my favorite, probably my favorite VR game ever. It's an arcade game. It's a little novelty act. There's nothing really to it. So, it's perfectly reasonable to say until we get to a level where, we're getting closer to it with things like this Samurai game and with Wanderer, we might not be there yet. And with that said, let's talk about Puzzle Bobble 3D Vacation Odyssey.
I do want to mention one thing that's exciting me about Castles of Jin, and that is the diversity of the weapons that you can use. A lot of the games that are out there, it's all shooter or all sword. This one, there were moments when they're rocking a bow and arrow. There were moments when they're rocking a sword. There was some hand-to-hand combat. And that is what drew me in mostly about this game, was the varying different types of combat that you can have. I mean, when I first got introduced to VR, it was on a game called Hollow Point, where you're just bow and arrowing all day. And by gosh, by golly, did I love it. And so this is another one that I'm absolutely excited for.
So I want to skip, I'm actually going to skip Puzzle Bobble 3D, unless anyone has grave objection.
I do want to say Bubble Bobble and Puzzle Bobble is life, and I've loved it since I was 5.
Lame. You're lame.
I just assume implicitly there's not a lot to see here.
I mean, there's
if I'm wrong,
it looks like you're basically, you have a ball launcher and you're playing puzzle bobble
3D Candy Crush
in VR. Yeah, it's basically your standard like Bejeweled Candy Crush game in 3D. There's really nothing new here, but it's cute.
But I want to get to Fracked because this actually, I do think Wanderer is the one that stuck out to me the most. But I had seen footage of Fracked before, and I'm into this one. This seems the most, deployable skis. Come on now. This just, I think VR games, considering your limited range of movement, the way that certain titles choose to get creative with it is what sets them apart. I think this is a perfect example. So for me, Fracked is a yes.
I enjoyed the art style of this one a lot. It reminded me a little bit of like the Borderlands-esque art style, and I feel like that's really good for VR because when you try to get super photorealistic with your game,
creepy.
In VR, it's just the technology, especially for the PSVR, it's very limited. Like you're never going to get super high quality graphics in VR. You're just not.
You can't take yourself too seriously.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think having this Borderlands-esque art style will help because you're not expecting to be in a super realistic world. You're kind of in this like semi-cel shaded cartoony atmosphere, and I think that pairs super well with the amount of action that is seen in this game.
Yeah. You're doing cartoony stuff.
Exactly. You're basically, and I'm going to steal this from Techtic, and I know he's been waiting to say this, but we had a conversation when we were watching the thing. It looked very like James Bond.
I was going to say Borderlands art meets GoldenEye combat.
Yeah. I think that's a perfect summary of what this is. And
it's the worst.
I was getting, James Bond is a better comparison than I could. I was getting a different movie, but it's totally wrong. So let's just forget that I was getting any movie. And let's talk about Wind and Leaves. Let's quiet things down a little bit.
I still don't know what this game is. There, I said it.
I have a comparison for this one. So you had a tough day at work. You just want to sit and you want to chill. So what do? You boot up Minecraft, right? But
Animal Crossing.
You know what? Or Animal Crossing.
Animal Crossing.
But oh my goodness, you don't have those games. Instead, you got Wind and Leaves. So now you're going to be planting some trees, exploring some wild, and having a good old time. That's all.
Okay, Ben, if you, first of all, do you have a game like that? Do you have a kind of long day at work, chill, relax game? The question I'm getting at is, if you had a choice to turn on Wind and Leaves and plant trees in a game, or plant trees in real life as a stress relief mechanism, which would you?
Real life.
Real life is the answer here. I'm very happy you agree with me. But with that, let's take that and put it in our back pocket. But is there a game that you have that you go to as a kind of a very gentle stress relief, like a Minecraft or an Animal Crossing or anything like that?
No, I've got a couple of games that I play on my iPads that are like these turn-based kind of fight kind of games. But other than that,
I really hope they're incredibly gory.
No, they're not. They're not gory. They're King of Fighters type games, where the SNK fighting game kind of thing, where you level up these characters and you fight them against other people or other. You've got different game types and stuff. It's just one of those things that, to me, at this point, since I've been playing it for so long, is kind of a brainless sort of like turn the mind off kind of thing.
Yeah.
As far as normal games are concerned, any game can be a relax after work game. It just, I got to play it in segments. Right now it's Outriders. I come home, I play about an hour Outriders before I unwind.
Yeah. Well, Wind and Leaves, we don't really know what it is. Gardening, I guess is the summary, which brings us.
It looks unique. That's the thing. The style looks a little.
It looks so chill.
Yeah,
so chill.
But what is it, right? And if a trailer doesn't tell you what it is, there's a mystery. But there's also, it's not telling you what it is.
My only complaint about that game is any VR game I do not use to unwind. And in my opinion, this game's kind of feel and flow seems more to be a sink into your couch and use the controller type game.
Which The Witness certainly wasn't a turn your mind off game, but that's kind of how I treated it a little bit. There are certain things about it that are so soporific of just like, you want to just play it and then, like you said, like hold a controller, but just kind of like melt into your couch, and you can't do that with VR. I think, Ben, too, you raised a good point. Like with trailers, there's a certain sweet spot. You don't want to, give everything away. But you also, and I think The Wanderer did a great job circling back to that. It showed you some of the stuff you're going to do, but you still don't really know what it is. And I think it hit the nail really well on the head with that. I guess we'll find out about Wind and Leaves, but I'm looking out into the virtual audience not an audience, but I'm looking out into the crowd and I see one little fingertip raised, and it belongs to Nerdbomber. After the Fall.
Yes.
Let's talk about After the Fall. So we had seen stuff about this before too. Zombies in Los Angeles. Looks like it's really cold. Lots of shooting. Lots of fun. 4-player co-op.
That's the part that makes me sad.
A Left 4 Dead vibe to it a little bit, I would say, in that regard. But why does that make you sad? You want to be on your own? You want to be a nomad?
Kind of. So they said during this trailer, because they had the developers come in and give you little snippets. And it looked, I don't know if there are any VR owners out there, but it looked a lot like, I think the game is called Arizona Sunshine, which is a zombie game. And that in VR, and then Left 4 Dead in non-VR. And that sounds all well and good, but the PSVR player base is not big enough to have an experience. Right. And there's Firewall 0 Hour, which is a online game, and there is a dedicated player base there. But the problem is that it's a small player base. It takes a long time to find a match. And when you do get matched up in that game, you're playing with experts. So the first time that you've booted up the game, it's very difficult to be casual and try to figure out your way and bumble around and figure out what you're doing, because you have people who are trying to communicate and they've played the game hundreds of hours. And they're like, why do you not know what's going on? Go do this.
Right.
And you're like, I don't know how to do that. And I feel like that's going to take this game, which seems, like a fun zombie shooter. I think we kind of got away from the zombie genre a little bit, and now it's coming back with stuff like Dying Light 2 and, Back 4 Blood, and now After the Fall. But I feel like matchmaking can't be very good. The player base isn't big enough, and that's just going to make the game die before it's ready.
Yeah, well, so I think you're probably right. I think when you put this next to Back 4 Blood, it's going to lose. Not that they're necessarily directly competing, but Back 4 Blood is very much just let's just do Left 4 Dead again. And I'm like, yes, let's just do Left 4 Dead again. Don't make it anything more than that.
Well, I'm glad you said it's not like they're not competing. In the next couple of years, the market is getting saturated with all these fantastic looking zombie games. And in comparison, this one just really can't compete to that point. We have Back 4 Blood. We have
Dying Light 2.
Dying Light 2. We just had... Ellie, what were you doing?
Oh, The Last of Us?
We just had The Last of Us 2.
I love how your callback. Ellie, what were you doing?
I was like, were you talking to someone named Ellie, away from your microphone right now? Yeah, no, I agree. It might be oversaturated. I think, Dying Light 2 is going to be... there's going to be a lot of depth to that game, I think. Whereas I think Back 4 Blood is going to be about as shallow as a game can get. And After the Fall might sit in kind of this gray area that might not suit it well. That's another one of my fears. But Ben, zombie games, is that a genre for you that you traffic a lot? And if so, do you have any words of wisdom to impart upon the developers of After the Fall? I'm sure they're listening right now.
No, I'm not a big zombie. To me, is not a genre. It's a story element, right? So
right. Okay,
it's, a zombie game doesn't by its very nature appeal to me. But if it's a part of a game that's fun, that's okay. I really loved all of the Dead Rising games. I loved, and the first one, I loved the unique taking photographs, kind of a la Pokemon Snap. Kind of you get points for the photographs that you take, and then also sort of the time management elements that if you don't...
I hated the time management part.
Yeah, see, that's the thing too. A lot of people did, but I actually did like them. Yeah, well...
different strokes for different folks, I guess.
Yeah, right. I just liked how weird it was, and you were fighting the sea of zombies and also all these weird people too.
That's just it, Ben. That game was unique in its own right. Whereas this just feels like, hey,
rudimentary.
We took Nazi zombies and we put it in VR.
There's snow zombies.
Right.
And also the graphics. I mean, compared to the other games that were showcased, it doesn't really look that good compared to the other ones. Yeah. It's just very average.
Yeah. Rudimentary is that's the word you just used. I think it's a great word
Watson.
for it. I think when it comes out, people are going to buy it. I'm not particularly jazzed about it, but we want to know what you thought of the PSVR Showcase. What game stuck out to you? What game did we not give enough attention to? Why do you hate me? Because I'm sure at least one of you does. Hit us up on Twitter at @OWIllegale86, at @OWNerdbomber, at @OWTechtic, and our main Online Warriors show account, which is at Online Warriors 1. we're going to move now into what I think will be a more brief topic before we get to the break. Crysis Remastered Trilogy. So this has just been announced for fall of 2021. Now, the thing about Crysis as a remaster... Now, first of all, I've never played any of the Crysis games. When I remember very vividly when Crysis came out, and I think the first one came out in like 2007 or something. It was a long time ago. It was a game that was, I think, used predominantly by gamers as like, here's how good my gaming PC is. I can play Crysis at the highest settings. So presumably, it was already for its time very, very advanced graphically. So my main point of emphasis here is that hearing that they're going to be doing a remaster made me feel old. Because I felt like they used to be, not long ago, like kind of the pinnacle of graphical capability. And of course, hardware has advanced, console generations have advanced. And I have to say, watching the trailer, for some reason, perhaps because my hardware couldn't handle it, I slept on these games. These games look very entertaining to me. The vibe that I got, did any of you ever play Fear?
Yeah.
Because I liked Fear a lot, and this gave me Fear vibes.
This was a good game, and the vibe.
So you did play, okay?
The vibe that I got when it came out initially was, that looks badass. And when I watched this, I didn't think the quote unquote remaster really looked that much improved graphically. But
we're talking about that too, yeah.
It's because, like you said, it looked great back then. So it's just, hey, we're gonna port it to the new console, call it a day. In my opinion.
Right.
Crysis 3 was one of the first games I played on my Xbox 360, and it was that was the first time I jumped back into console gaming since my PlayStation 2. I mean, I had a Wii, but you weren't playing games like Crysis on a Wii. And so that was my first foray back into console gaming, and I just remember being absolutely blown away at how it looked.
I think it was really funny just now, by the way, how you were like, my Xbox 360 was the first time I jumped back into console gaming since the generation before with the PlayStation 2. I was like, I thought you were going to jump back to like the N64 or something.
No, but I was on the tail end of the 360, I guess is a better way to put it.
Sure.
I hadn't picked up a 360 until probably 3 years before that generation ended. And that sounds like a long time, but considering that console generation was almost a decade, it's pretty far in.
I still maintain, and I want your opinion on this too, Ben. I maintain overall the new generations that I've seen, that the GameCube, PS2, Xbox generation to the 360, PS3, I guess Wii generation, to me that was the biggest jump in terms of
agree.
Graphical. I just remember, and it might have been at the time of my life when it happened, I just remember seeing footage of Call of Duty 2 and I had to pick my jaw up off the floor. So I guess, Ben, kind of two-pronged question. First of all, what's your assessment of the question I just asked, which is what was the biggest graphical jump to you? And then also, what's your experience with Crysis, Ben, like?
Okay. Biggest graphical jump for me, you're going to laugh. Like Atari to 8-bit graphics. I mean, that right there.
That is fair, yeah.
I mean, that to me is the most notable jump. I mean, just for me, from my time on this earth. So going from that to 8-bit,
that's a pretty unimpeachable. Yeah, it's an unimpeachable answer.
Yeah,
for sure.
So anything in comparison, it's just you're fine tuning the graphics to a point where it looks more like a PC now, as far as the generations of consoles are concerned. So it's not, I don't think of it as a jump. Plus, I don't really care about. I know this sounds. You're like, oh, sure, you care about the graphics. And to some extent, thanks, Techtic. Yeah, I do, but it's not the end-all, be-all of a game. If a game has unique and interesting game dynamics and gets me interested with the story and so on and so forth, I don't care about the graphics.
We all probably, within the last 5 years, have picked up another 8-bit game that just has a great story, and it was an indie game that was fantastic.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that to me, graphics jump or not, I mean, it's kind of like, it's impressive, but it's very secondary for me as far as what I enjoy in games. But I know there are people out there who do, they're all about the tech. They're all about, look at how many, look at the refresh rate. Look at how, how amazing this looks on my big screen television, my 8K or whatever they're up to now, right?
I think they are at 8K, yeah. I don't know, actually.
I don't think anyone has one because they're like thousands and thousands of dollars.
Right.
I don't know if anything even produces 8K video. Like, you can have an 8K TV, but like, is there any content for it? I genuinely want to know. If anybody out there knows the answer, please let me know, because I'm curious.
It's the default slideshow that like comes on a flash drive, and that's it.
Well, I hate to lean on this example again, but Superhot VR is a perfect example of what you're saying. That is literally polygons. Like, they're little polygon men. There's basically no graphics in that game, but it's so freaking fun. There is definitely an art form, and there is a sect of gaming that is just like, let's make graphics entirely secondary to gameplay experience, like you said, to story. I haven't played the Crysis games. Crysis games ain't that. I'm sure Crysis was like, we are going to make these the gosh darn best looking games that have ever existed. And yeah. I think in large part they did do that. So now to see them coming back is interesting, I think.
Honestly, what I think, when you said, as far as the way they looked, right, that was the big thing, was how amazing the graphics were. I mean, it seems to me like they're one of the games that was a benchmark game, right? If you want
exactly.
If you want the highest graphics quality, take a look at the Crysis games, because that's what they're capable of. That's what, the Crytek engine was capable of. I believe that's what was used. Yep. And I mean, where is Crytek? I mean,
apparently they've been remastering the old Crysis games. That's
right. So what is, but anyway, that's, it does look pretty cool. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It does look cool, but my experience with the Crysis games was a guy in a super suit shooting around, first-person shooter. The story didn't really grab me too much, so I didn't play so much of it. It wasn't a unique experience for me personally.
Story was very secondary, for sure. A lot of it was just almost like in how you would approach Dishonored, but like without a story and with more like tech capabilities. Because you had to kind of choose how you wanted to approach scenarios. Like, did you want to become invisible? Did you want to use a crossbow? Did you want to use a gun? Like, how are you going to attack this scenario? But story-wise, it was just
Yeah, I have a very vivid memory of being stuck in a stairwell in the Crysis Xbox 360 game, where, the graphics looked great, but there was some sort of weird kind of like the character was shooting through the floor somehow, and it was a solid stairway, and it was just something happened where it was just kind of like, okay, well, this kind of sucks, but I was just like, well, it's a bug, right? Like anything else. It didn't turn me off of playing the game, but I would say it's an illustration is all games have bugs. So
true enough.
Be kind, let things slide.
Earlier, Ben, too, is that, Crytek kind of disappeared. And Crysis was such a big franchise, and for basically the entire last generation, which now I'm starting to refer to quote unquote next gen as current gen, but like the Xbox One, PS4 generation, we didn't see anything from that IP, and it was such a big IP. And starting to see things like Mass Effect, which I know we had Andromeda, but we try not to talk about it. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't like we just try not to talk about it. You've got that, you've got Crysis now, and like what other IPs that skipped the last generation will we see kind of resurrected and getting new eyes on them? Maybe
Dead Space. Dead Space, Metroid Prime. Oh, you're opening up some wounds. I think it's interesting. There was definitely at least a subconscious thought on my part in terms of, okay, Crysis Remastered. Like, I'd pay $30 for this probably. You know what I would pay $60 for?
Mass Effect.
A Crysis 4, like something new. Yeah. Like, you would think that if they've lain dormant for so long that they were working on the next benchmark. It seems like they cared so much about it in the Crysis era. Why wouldn't they come out with Crysis 4 that, like, you can see, the dribble of sweat on every dude's forehead or something, like
my theory is that all of these remastered bundle editions are basically buttering people up for the new game coming out.
Could be.
We are buttery.
Because, that's what they did with Mass Effect. They released the Legendary Edition, and then they announced in the same breath that Mass Effect 4 is on the way, like a true Mass Effect 4. So I think part of it might be trying to resurrect the IP, getting people's eyes on it so that then they're ready for the sequel when that comes out. Because we all know no one wants to jump in at the fourth entry.
Well, I guess you would think that they would do what Mass Effect did, which, Mass Effect did that very well, which, like you said, you posture it where, okay, Mass Effect 4 is coming out. We know a lot of you probably don't care. So here's a remaster of 1, 2, and 3 so that you will care. You would think Crytek would do the same thing, but maybe not. I don't know. Again, Twitter handles were mentioned earlier in the episode. Let us know how you're feeling about the Crysis Remastered Trilogy. Let us know if you experienced the shooting stairwell bug in what I assume was Crysis 3. And hit us up. We're going to head into the break now, but before we do, Sir Ben Jackness, thank you so much for all that you've done for the show. Ben is a Knight level subscriber on our Patreon, and as a result, he is, among many other things, joining us here tonight. We've also gained a new Knight at our round table, Mr. Stephen Keller, who joined the episode 2 weeks back, 1 week back. Time is a construct. Thanks to both Ben and Stephen. As Knight level subscribers, they get occasional guest spots, they get access to the monthly secret segment and vlog, and they also get input into our weekly game segment, which I will be hosting this week. More on that later. You can also support us at the Squire level, which gets you access to the monthly secret segment and vlog, and there's also the lowly page, which gets you access to the monthly secret segment. So for more of the details on any and all of those levels, you can head over to patreon.com/Online Warriors Podcast. Thanks again to Ben and Steven. We're going to take a short break now and shout out a sponsor, and we'll be back to talk about some Rom-Dram right after that.
Brush is an electric toothbrush that will change the way you think about brushing your teeth. With powerful sonic technology and ultra-gentle bristles, the Brush redefines what it means to have super clean teeth. It's like that feeling when you just leave the dentist. A fresh, whole mouth clean every single day. Our listeners get 15% off their total purchase with code POD15. Follow the link in the show notes and enter the code POD15 to get your exclusive discount and upgrade your oral care routine. Thanks so much to Bruce for sponsoring this week's episode, and now let's get back to the show.
Okay, welcome back. Rom-Dram. I finally get to explain what this term means. Thanks again to Techtic for coming up with this. Our creative titles department came through big time. So the long and short of this, there is a website called RomUniverse. I don't know if any of you have ever frequented this website. They are a ROM hosting website, as their name would indicate. And, I have used ROMs before. I will say that much. Emulators are the way in the life. But Nintendo just went ahead and sued them. Basically what happened, they sued them. Lawsuit was filed back in September 2019. Nintendo was originally suing for $15 million in damages. The court reduced the damages to $2,115,000 in total. So Nintendo has been kind of going around and filing lawsuits against other ROM hosting sites, already having been awarded over $12 million in damages. Now, I don't love this. My main piece of feedback is $2 million in Nintendo's bottom line feels like no money. I get that they're trying to make a statement, and that's why they did it, but just sue the guy. Don't take his money. Just say this is bad and make it public. I don't know. Maybe that's a short sight. Maybe that's a myopic, naive way.
Yeah, but if you sue the guy and don't take his money, it's not a statement.
Right.
If there's no teeth behind the bite, then it's not really gummy. A bite. Yeah. I have mixed feelings on this.
Put the guy in the public square and stone him to death.
Yeah. Well, maybe not to death, but
No, not to death.
Give him like a black eye or something.
Stone him with Game Boys. Game Boy cartridges.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the public is not allowed to pick them up and take them afterwards because then they'll get sued.
That's true.
Nothing's free when it comes to Nintendo.
I'm really torn on this because, on one hand,
I get why they did it.
ROMs are illegal. I get it. If you're violating copyright, I think it's copyright laws, and illegally hosting, sharing, selling, using ROMs, it's illegal. There's laws. You have to follow them. I get it. But also, we've seen so many games get lost to history. And while ROMs are kind of like this seedy, quote unquote seedy, I guess, underhanded, semi-illegal thing in most cases, there have been instances where ROMs are the only way people can play old, beloved games. They can't access them in any other way. And so for that reason, I hate seeing these ROM websites get taken down because, Nintendo probably won't let their copyrights on anything lapse because Nintendo seems very close-fisted with their legal team. They make sure that everything is ironclad for them forever. But there are so many other ROMs that are hosted on these websites, that are from different developers, different publishers that may be defunct now, and now those might get lost to time. The internet is forever, and I'm sure somebody has a copy of those ROMs somewhere, but maybe not.
I think games should be similar to a patent, where it can be this novel idea and you file for rights for it, but those rights expire after a while, and at that point, then it's released to the public.
Well, I think they kind of do. Like, I know there are ROMs out there that are like specifically like the copyright has eclipsed and now they're open.
There are books that are like that too. Like, I think Sherlock Holmes is like, what's the term I'm looking for? Public domain.
Right, yeah.
Where you can just do what you want with them.
Thanks for coming in with the legal jargon. I was struggling. I was like fishing in my brain for that. And I was like, I don't know what that's called.
But it should be for all games, in my opinion.
I'm not super sure that's right, but
because of exactly what Nerdbomber said, where if they don't want to renew it, then let us, relive our childhood with the nostalgia that is the only way we can get it through ROMs.
Here's my question. Was this website making money?
Yes, they were.
Okay,
they were.
So that's where the problem lies, right? If it's a hosting website that is just hosting for being a library, or not getting any money, or not, just doing it to host, well, then Nintendo has no grounds. The only problem comes in when they, this person who didn't create this is selling it. I think that's wrong. And I would want those things to shut down.
I think Nintendo would still have grounds even if it was free, right? Because they made something.
Oh, it's true. Yeah.
I think the ground is shakier.
The website at its base, from what I was reading, was free, but there were like limits. You had monthly limits.
There were premium. Yeah, you could buy premium subscriptions to surpass download limits. Is how they made money.
Right.
At the end of the day, they made money. So I think you're right.
I don't remember if the article that I read on this said how much money they were making, or if it was just enough to sustain the hosting fees. Like, I feel like if it's just enough to sustain hosting fees, like, I kind of get it.
But that gets into a sticky...
Right. Because technically, in the eyes of the government, everything is income.
My argument is much more nebulous, which is, who among us has not torrented something?
Hey man, I don't want the FBI to come after me.
I'm admitting to this on the air. When not anymore. I don't do it anymore. When I was in college, I went to college with Nerdbomber and Techtic. For those that don't know, we met in college. We had this. I'm not going to say the name of the website. It was kind of a peer-to-peer sharing service. I'm not going to say the name of the college either, because I'm sure I'd get them in trouble. I cannot tell you how many. I think it was predominantly music that I downloaded off that thing, but I also downloaded a couple of ROMs. I know for a fact that I downloaded the ROM for Super Mario 64 and got 120 stars for the first time, and it was a formative experience for me. So for me, ROMs are always going to hold this place in my heart. With that said, yeah, it's ethically dubious at best. But as an end user, I can't be held responsible. So that's kind of what I'm hanging my hat on.
I have used ROMs, but it was an arcade. It was a multiple arcade emulator sort of ROM thing.
Okay.
Where what they end up, they say, oh, well, these have the information that's on the chipset. So all you got to do is just find a way to transfer this information from the ROMs that we have to the chip. And then you can have a replacement for whatever, defunct game that they no longer make chips for. Right. Which I guess is a different sort of thing as far as legally. I know that there are Nintendo games out there that I've played on arcade emulator that who knows if the rights to those things have lapsed, like Donkey Kong Jr., and to a lesser extent Popeye, the video game.
Mm-hmm.
So I have played them mostly for nostalgic purposes, and when I was done with them, I just deleted them.
Well, I think too I think you had mentioned this, but if you own the game, I think as the end user, technically you're allowed to use ROMs. You're not allowed to download them, but you're allowed to use them, wink, wink. Like, I think they anticipate you backing up your own physical copy of the game. But I think as long as you own the game, you're technically in the clear for owning the ROM. It's a weird legal thing.
Yeah. And it's legal. It's a legal thing where? In the United States.
Right.
Only, right? It's if you have a ROM hosting service in Russia, I don't think Nintendo is going over there and saying, hey, we're going to sue you, right? It all depends on where the thing is located. So
yeah, that was another thing I was actually surprised that it was hosted out of the US, because I thought it, not that I know anything about nefarious deeds, but I thought it was pretty common knowledge that if you did want to do nefarious deeds, you like host
almost
everything
like offshore,
through a different country.
Right.
The online equivalent of like banking in the Caymans, basically.
Right.
Just do it.
ROM-hosting in the
the quote unquote dark web. Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's like, I watched, this is the most offshoot in the world, but I watched that Q Into the Storm documentary, and it seems like everything there was happening in the Philippines. And it seems like there's a lot of internet stuff just happening in the Philippines because Philippines internet laws are like, they don't exist, or like they're much more lax than they are here. So that's it's definitely a thing. But yeah, Nintendo is well within their right. It doesn't make me happy, but I get it. I guess is kind of the broad stroke summary of this one. So that's the Rom-Dram, guys. That's the scoop. That's the dish. That's the tea, as it were. Again, let us know how you guys feel about this. Hit us up on the Twitters. Let us know what your ROM experience has been like and whether you feel personally affronted by Nintendo's actions. We're going to move into What Are You Up To Wednesday here, and we're gonna headline with our guest host, obviously, and there's some exciting stuff going on in Ben's life that I think he wants to kind of share and preface before we play a clip for him. So Ben, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes. I, in part to you guys for inspiring me to do this. And, over the, what is it? It's been 2 years, hasn't it? It's been about 2 years?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds right.
Yeah. I've gained confidence in my voice and being on the show, and I've decided to, over the last few months, I've been working on creating my own podcast. And we have a website through Podbean. It's www.twovague.podcast, TWOVAGUE podcast, spelled out, .com. And it's a show about, it's video game related, but it's also topic related. We take a word, and then myself and my host, we talk about what that word means to us. We do research on the word, if it applies, tell stories about it for the first half of the show. And then the second half of the show, we kind of change gears and we go into how is that word related to video games, and peripherally or otherwise. So it's an experiment. It's going to take time for us to find our balance, but we've got a preliminary show in the works, which you're going to listen to a clip of right now. That is from our first, we're going to call it the pilot episode, because the primary episode, it's a much shorter version, just to give people a taste of what they're in for when they subscribe to the show. The teaser. So yeah, I call it a pilot, but it's just basically kind of just a test run, and more to come. Starting June 23rd is when we're going to do it, the first main show. So getting really excited. All the social media information is on www.twovaguepodcast.com. And I'm looking forward to it's been so much fun just having this creative outlet, and it's been great. So we're going to listen right now to a brief clip from the pilot/teaser episode of the Too Vague podcast. Listen now as Ben and his co-host talk about, in part, Mannheim Steamroller.
Oh, you asked me, would the music in a musical game have to be better or worse than Mannheim Steamroller? And I think you're overlooking the obvious solution to this.
Right.
Is why not have Mannheim Steamroller be the music in a musical video game?
Oh, no, it's true.
I mean, it's very, it's very, what's the word? I think it lends itself well.
I was going to say bad.
To alternative interpretations.
Right.
I could even see sort of if we were back in the Dreamcast days, maybe even a Mannheim Steamroller make my music video. So I think
I'm slowly starting to believe that this is sarcasm.
I think the Heim, as we fans call them, the Heim, I think the Heim is ripe and ready for the Steam Roller Sans.
Yeah.
And let me put it this way. If you were to tell me, hey, have you played the new Mannheim Steamroller PC game? My immediate reaction would not be, of course not. It would be, wait a minute, I need to go look at the Mannheim Steamroller PC game.
Yeah.
So I think there's something there.
Okay.
Should we unearth it?
I don't know.
Maybe, maybe not. But I think
only time will tell.
I think that is potentially this episode's hidden nugget of genius.
The Mannheim Steamroller video game.
Yeah.
We'll work on it.
You could even you could go so many different directions with that.
We can go for like a construction simulator.
Exactly. With the steamrollers.
Exactly.
You could do something. You could do something Christmassy.
Yeah.
With it. You could do something, some sort of a rhythm game.
You can involve the Heimlich maneuver.
The man Heimlich steamroller. That's wow.
Yep.
Wow. Mannheim Steamroller, if you're listening, we're big fans of the entire catalog, especially that one Christmas song you do about the bells.
All right. So what do you guys think about that clip? And do you have any questions about the show and what it's going to be about and what we're doing?
So I have one main question. I agree. It sounded great. You guys clearly have a banter going on.
Good chemistry.
Great chemistry. What I would like, and you don't have to give me an actual. If you have a list of words that you have prepped for upcoming episodes, you don't have to spoil any of those. But give me an example of what a word might be. Are we talking proper nouns? Was Mannheim Steamroller a word?
No.
Or was that came up organically? Is what it sounded like.
That came up organically. The word that we used for basically this pilot episode was musical.
Okay.
So yeah, we talk about our experiences with musical. Well, I mean, is that a musical? I don't want to get too much into this show, but it's like
sure.
When we talk about a musical, and one of the things you'll hear in the main episode is my question is basically how many there aren't any games out there that tell a story in the style of a musical. And would that be appealing? And would that be something? So that's part of our video game conversation that kind of kicks off the whole Mannheim Steamroller joke.
Well, the other, what's interesting too, I don't know if the word was chosen with this in mind, but like musical is both a noun and
Correct.
Adjective, right? So you can take it either way, and that is clearly a seed for discussion. So that's a really cool idea. I'm looking forward to hearing more. Certainly, I already told you this offline, but I'll say it again on the air. The rich bass tones of the voices. Pass that along to your co-host if you would.
Will do. Will do.
You guys both have podcast voices that I'm personally envious of. So we're all looking forward to listening.
Yeah, can't wait to check it out.
And one quick thing before I pass the baton, as it were. Yeah, that's one of the things I thought of is if we have a word and we each talk about what that word means to us, and it can be different things, right? Musical could be like a musical, a production, or it could mean, things that are musical or, things that we hear or whatever. So that's what we're going to try and start with. We can do our own research, but we're going to go two different ways. Obviously, we're going to have approach the word differently. And then the plan is to have one of the hosts basically lead the conversation. So it's either going to be myself or Chris leading the conversation to wherever we want to take it to. And so, yeah, it should be really creative and interesting and fun to listen to. So
right on. Looking forward to hearing it. So again, the Too Vague Podcast, www.toovaguepodcast.com. Did I get that right, Ben?
Yep. Two spelled out, TWO.
Yeah, two spelled out. Social media details therein. So with that, we will pass the what have you been up to baton over to... I'm going to pass it to myself. You know what? I'm going to take charge.
Typical.
It's so typical. There's one thing I mainly want to discuss today. I've been up to a few things, but I feel like this deserves the majority of my time. Bo Burnham's Inside. So for those that don't know, this came out, I think it was Sunday, May 30th. It's Bo Burnham's latest comedy special. It released on Netflix. It's an hour and a half long, just about. I had no experience with Bo Burnham up until watching this. I hadn't watched any of his previous specials. I had seen a handful of Vines back when Vine was a thing, and Bo Burnham was doing that. Guys, this was fascinating. I can't even sit here and tell you whether I liked it or not yet, because it was just so singular. I think I liked it, but first of all, one thing I want to impart to all the listeners and to all of you, it is not a comedy special. That is, there are parts that are funny, but that is a misnomer, I would say. People might find it generally funny, but there are parts that so the premise of this special is, it's called Inside, and he filmed it, produced it, edited it, wrote the songs, everything by himself when he was basically trapped inside of his very small apartment during quarantine. And I'll tell you what, he is going through some stuff. I won't get more into it than that, but I think Bo Burnham has this penchant for tackling difficult issues, especially the ones that plague people of his ilk and his generation.
And he's a whiz on the piano.
He's a whiz on the keys. I was telling my fiance when I was watching it, I think if he hadn't gone the comedy angle, he could have very, very easily been either a serious musician / songwriter, or he could have been some kind of music producer, because he clearly just has an ear for things that sound good, and he can do it very effortlessly. I guarantee you've never seen anything like this. I don't want to give too much away, but
so I'm very intrigued.
It's profoundly creative. It's profoundly creative. That's the main thing. Yeah.
Because I was a Bo Burnham fan before he really got big. I remember
blew up.
I remember senior year of high school, I had all of his stuff kind of downloaded onto my MP3 player that I listened to.
You were a hipster. You liked it before it was cool.
Yeah. And it was always
I don't know if that's a definition of a hipster, though. You know what I mean?
You liked it before people knew.
His artistry was always very comedic. And so to say that there's this sort of content out there that is comedy, but it's got sort of a depressing twist, I'm absolutely
edge to this.
Interested to see kind of where he went and how he's grown since what I recall him to be back in the Dizzy.
From what I know of his comedy at large, there's an edge to everything he does. But there's one song in particular that comes almost towards the end, over an hour in, and it's not funny at all. It's like a folk song, and it's very well done. It's very somber would be the word I would use for it. He looks not great. Like he for most of it, he has like this really, really long bushy beard. He looks like he crawled out of a cave and was like, I'm going to make this special, which might be part of it. He seems like he's just got this whole thing going on right now. It's an hour and a half. I encourage anyone who's even a little bit curious to watch it. If you turn it off 10 minutes in because you think it's just weird and don't like it, I would totally understand that. But it is so, it's just so different than anything I've seen.
Are you a regular stand-up comedy kind of? Did you go into this expecting stand-up comedy? Or
So it's a good question. I didn't expect stand-up comedy. I expected him to be sitting at a piano singing funny songs. And that's what some of it is, but way less of it is that than I thought. For me in stand-up comedy, I have a very love-hate relationship with it, especially in terms of like stuff that's on Netflix. I love John Mulaney. I'm a huge John Mulaney fan. I actually didn't think Jerry Seinfeld's special was too bad. I thought Kevin James's most recent one was terrible. I thought Ken Jeong's was absolutely abysmal. I've had it's a very Jekyll and Hyde thing with me and watching stand-up comedy sometimes. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's just really, really aggressively not, and it seems like there's no middle ground. This managed to find a middle ground because it wasn't traditional comedy. It was something just totally different.
When you say he's going through some stuff, was the humor just self-deprecating humor? Because that's sort of his style. No. That's nothing different.
It's not self-deprecating so much as it is, why are we on this planet? It's just like, it's very like,
I don't know if I could deal with that right now.
It's almost like existential. Yeah, Nerdbomber, you could not. I will say, after mentioning it to you, because I got on our Discord and mentioned it to these guys right after I watched it. And after I did, I was like, I don't know if Nerdbomber can handle this.
What about me? Do me.
You can handle it, yes. I think. I think generally, and we don't need to do any psychoanalysis now, but I think you can let things roll off a little bit easier than Nerdbomber can, especially stuff like this where he's just he's standing in front of you playing a piano, and 1 second he's saying this just asinine stuff about Jeff Bezos and it's funny, and then the next he is like, we're all experiencing crippling derealization because of our continued exposure to the internet. And you're like, oh my God, he's right. And it's just like, it's kind of unsettling. There's parts of it that are really unsettling.
When you mentioned that, I thought of another Netflix special. I don't know if you know the comedian Neil Brennan.
I've heard of him.
Yeah, he had a sort of I mean, this seems to be like the reflective comedy special seems to be like a flavor of the month.
Yeah.
Or not the month, but, over the last couple of years, it's been, like you're bearing your soul, right, to an audience. And in Neil Brennan's Three Mics, it was very much like that. There was stuff that was funny. There was stuff that was, just kind of like emotional. There was stuff that he was actually working through something there.
Yeah.
And that, I think that's really a tricky balance to strike. And,
Bo Burnham, and it sounds like people like Neil Brennan, they've taken observational comedy, which it's a genre that started with Jerry Seinfeld saying, "What's the deal with airline food?" That's observational comedy at its most basic. That's what it is, right? And they've taken it and they've weaponized it by just injecting kind of this extreme dose of vulnerability into it.
Right.
And it's observational, but it's self-observational, and it takes profound courage. And when you watch inside, that comes through, I would say. So yeah, I'll stop gabbing, but I recommend it just because I guarantee you haven't seen anything like it. So that's on Netflix. That's free.
I'll revisit that in like a year, and maybe I can deal with it. But right now, I just oof.
Further removal from the pandemic would probably help. Yeah.
Maybe one of his specials, like it isn't Make Happy one of them.
Make Happy is there. I haven't seen it. I've heard that one's really good too. I'm probably going to watch more of his stuff now because I do think it was a positive experience. It's just it's a little bit hard to call it that because of just like it's so introspective.
The subject matter, yeah.
It caught me off guard, I guess, and I'm still kind of processing that myself. But I'll turn it over now. I talked for a long time about it, so I'll turn it over now to Nerdbomber. Take it away.
So I've probably tweeted about this several times, but I had the misfortune of spraining my wrist, so I've been a little bit limited in what I can do, but I've kind of made the foray into gaming again, and it's very awkward because I have this wrist brace that also like braces my thumb. So I can't move my thumb, and it's just like very strange to hold a controller, but I'm making do. And so while I was also playing Mass Effect, Knockout City came out, and I wanted to give that a spin because it's on Game Pass. And it's pretty fun. Like, I'm really terrible at it because I don't have the dexterity and the reflex that I would normally have. I don't know if that would make a difference anyway, because lately I tend to be just very bad at multiplayer. I feel like if it's not like something that I already know, like Call of Duty, then I'm not very good at it. But it's a pretty fun game. I was very surprised. I thought it would kind of be like, I don't know, Fall Guys was a lot of fun, and it was like a cultural phenomenon when that came out, how it kind of took the gaming world by storm, and everyone was playing it, but it was almost like a flash in the pan. Like, it's still around, but it's not something that you play regularly. You know, you like pick it up here and there when you've got 5-10 minutes to knock around, and you can maybe get in a game and it can last 30 seconds, and it's not very big commitment. Knockout City somehow manages to bring the fun aspects of competitive multiplayer, but make it more accessible to people to jump right in. I mean, we've all seen the trailers for the game. It's basically dodgeball in this very cartoony city. The atmosphere of the game really reminded me of something like Sunset Overdrive. Like a lot of just flashy, like kind of like punk-esque loud colors everywhere, very cartoony style. There's an announcer who's kind of narrating everything that you do. There are customization options to make your character look cartoony and punky however you want them to. But the gameplay is actually really simple. They've somehow nailed a very simplistic gameplay that can also be very complex. So, and part of the reason why I was able to play this, and after I was, reading some reviews and stuff, I decided to delve into the game even with my hand not working functionally, is there's no aiming. You pick up a ball, a dodgeball, when you're running around, and you can throw at anybody by just hitting the trigger. It automatically locks onto your opponent. The ball automatically goes to them. You know, catching the ball or dodging the ball, as simple as a button. You know, there's a big warning thing when you're being targeted with a ball, so you don't always have to be like on super high alert at all times. You're notified when someone's about to throw at you. It's very accessible and easy for someone to pick up who may never have played a competitive multiplayer game before. And I think that really speaks volumes to having a player base that might last, especially since it's on Game Pass. They're going to be more apt to have people just pick it up on a whim, you know, be like, hey, this is approachable for me. I can actually play this and have fun. And they might keep it installed and pick it up every now and then. It's really fun. I mean, it's a fun dodgeball concept. The control is very intuitive. And while I wasn't very good at the game, like, I didn't feel frustrated. You know what I mean? Like, I know sometimes when you pick up Call of Duty and you get in there with people who are professional gamers, sometimes you just get matched up with them. And you just, like, as soon as you spawn, you're just insta-killed. That's not how this game feels at all. It's very approachable, super fun. I will definitely revisit it when I have a little bit more dexterity back. But I think this could have longevity, because there are ways, too, to make it more complicated and more skillful if you want to. Like, there are different types of throws you can pull off if you want to, but it's not necessary. And I think this game could actually go the distance, which I normally don't feel that way about new multiplayer games. I usually think most new multiplayer games, for the most part, that rely on public matchmaking heavily, I feel like the player base will be a flash in the pan and the game usually will die. But I think this one could stand the test of time.
That's good to hear. I remember we talked about this on an episode. I don't remember how long ago it was, but we definitely talked about it. And I remember thinking, gosh, it's so cool. It looks so simple. So it's great to hear that they followed through, I guess, in practice on what they were preaching in the trailer and the gameplay videos they showed. So
yeah, I was pleasantly surprised.
Cool. Right on. That brings us over to my guy Techtic. Unless you're Nerdbomber, are you satisfied?
Oh yeah, I was satisfied with Knockout City and satisfied with my update.
Techtic, my man.
So my pre-order of Biomutant came, but instead of playing that, I decided to finally open up a Christmas present that I got many moons ago.
Only 6 months late. Sorry.
Yeah, well, Nerdbomber got me a 3D printer, and basically I've been trying to figure out what room it's going to go in and on what surface, and now I have both identified, and I've got the surface cleared, and I put together the 3D printer. It is a Anycubic Mega S printer, and I'm putting together a Tinkering with Techtic video to go through how I set it up and some of the things that I learned along the way. And as we speak on this podcast, I am printing a His and Hers Owls. So hopefully you guys give a hoot.
Oh
gosh, did you choose owls just for the pun? Because I don't know.
No, in the setup guide, it directs you to print said owls.
Ah, okay.
So to make sure that everything works good, I used those owls. I tried another model that I found online, but it kept being weird. It was a bad model, so I went to the owls.
What's the first thing after the owls? If you're choosing what to print, what is the first thing you're choosing to print?
The handle for my Darksaber.
Okay. Didn't I don't want to take credit for it, but wasn't the Darksaber, wasn't I like, you should make a Darksaber? It was that you that said that.
Sure, if you want to take an idea for the entire innovation that's going to be behind it, you can take credit for that.
No,
but really, all you said was, you should make a Darksaber. And I was like, okay, here's how.
That's what I didn't say here. I didn't say you should make a Darksaber and here's how to do it. I think I said Techtic likes challenges and this seems like a challenge. And I said you should make a Darksaber. Well, hey, look at us. Look how far we've come. The handle's going to get made is what it sounds like it's going to happen. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing a lot of 3D printed stuff.
Hey, Techtic, I've got a question.
Hey, Ben, what's your question?
Are you going to be 3D printing an engagement ring?
No.
I'm just kidding.
Just a His and Hers owl.
Just the owls. That'll substitute nicely.
Ben is absolutely throwing heaters over there. Oh my gosh. Holy crap.
So do you start with a block and it just carves away? I mean, or is it, I mean, I guess I don't understand how the 3D printer, like how you get it to.
It
puts
layers.
Filament down. Yeah, it puts
okay.
the filament down actually.
Okay, so it's not like it carves, it actually puts layers of
you're thinking
stuff.
of a CNC.
Okay.
Yeah, this is more, I would say, like, imagine like a caulk gun, And it's essentially an automated caulk gun leaving little spaghetti strands of plastic filament
on top of itself.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And then that gets basically printed into a model that's 3-dimensional.
Correct.
Okay. Interesting. I can't wait to look at the videos because it sounds like it's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm excited for the future of tinkering with Techtic.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I think we are going to move into the game for the week, which I have the pleasure of hosting. And I have selected a topic. There was a tie in the poll, so I selected the topic that was near and dear to my heart. Currently, it's one of my current haunts, the Game of Thrones, or a Game of Thrones, the Song of Ice and Fire, whatever you want to call it. These are TV show related trivia questions. The book is only tangentially involved in one of the questions, which is actually a two-parter. So I have 6 questions, 1 tiebreaker in front of me. One of the questions is a 2-parter. They are all Price is Right style questions. You know the drill. They're all numerical.
You know what? Can I sit this one out? Because I absolutely know nothing.
That's the fun about
Sometimes
Game of Thrones.
That's better.
Okay, fine.
You absolutely cannot. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,
look, man, it's a thrill to have you here, but you have to play. That's
okay.
I don't make the rules.
It's in the contract. I know.
What did we say a couple weeks ago? We like to have guests on and then smack them with knowledge.
Yeah, I think that's what we did with Steven. So what goes around and around, I guess. Okay, so here come the questions. Let's start at the beginning, in every sense of the word. The first novel in A Song of Ice and Fire, the book series, which incidentally is not yet completed, was called A Game of Thrones. When, in what years, this is a 2-part question, so I need an answer for both. In what year did the first novel release? And in what year did the first episode of the show release? And we're going to start with Nerdbomber, both because ladies first and because she is the proverbial queen of the castle. She has the best record amongst us.
I'm trying to remember. I feel like the book was probably around 2001. And then the TV show, oh man, I can almost pinpoint the year. I think it was probably 2012.
Okay. Let's go over to Techtic.
2003 and 2007.
Okay. And Mr. Ben.
What was Nerdbomber's answers? What were those answers? 2001
and 2012, I believe is what she said.
Okay. I'm going to go... I'm going to go 19... Well, you know what? If I'm going to go back, I might as well go back. It's over. You're wrong, right? So let's go 1990 and 2009.
Okay. 2 points to the guest, guys. He's coming out hot.
Whoa.
So, yeah, Nerdbomber, Techtic, you both busted on the book. 1996 is when the first book came out. The show, Nerdbomber, you busted. Techtic, you were close, but Ben just edged you out. 2011. So, Ben's on the board here with 2 points at the tippy top of the game.
See, and he didn't want to play.
He's putting you guys on notice.
I feel like you're hustling us. Like you were like, I don't know anything about Game of Thrones.
What did he say? It was either the last time he was here or the year before. Breaking necks and cashing checks. That's what's going on right now. So Game of Thrones, as you may know, ran for, I'm not even going to say how many seasons, but I'm going to ask you how many episodes there were. And now we'll start with Techtic. We'll just kind of round robin the first ups.
160.
Okay, over to Ben.
I would say it's more like 210.
I think you both busted. I feel like these were short seasons. Like, I think this was one of the things that started the short seasons. So I'm gonna say, I'm gonna go really low and I'm gonna say 30, but I know it's in low double digits.
Okay, so Nerdbomber was correct. 73 episodes. So in particular, the 8th season only had 6 episodes.
So roughly a cadence of 10 per. I thought it was 20 per.
Much.
That's why I picked 160.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're hour-long episodes. They're pretty, on average, an hour-long episodes, and they're pretty beefy. So Nerdbomber's on the board. Techtic, to the surprise of no one who's been listening for more than a couple of episodes, is back a little bit. But hey, it's early. He gets last ups for the next question. So, 8 seasons, 73 episodes. Throughout the entirety of the show's run, how many countries did it film in? This is filming locations. Filming locations were spread across how many countries? And we're going to start with Ben this time.
Okay. I'm going to say, since it's my favorite number, I'm going to say 11.
Okay. And over to Nerdbomber.
I'm going to say this is a trick question. I'm going to say 1.
I'm going to say 5.
And just like that, he's on the board, ladies and gentlemen.
What?
Ben, this one's a heartbreaker for you. 10 countries.
Oh.
Just over 10 countries. I can name them all for you if you give me a hot minute here, because I have them in this article in front of me. Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, Morocco, Malta, Spain, Croatia, Iceland, United States, Canada, and Scotland. Most predominantly, it was filmed in Ireland, but those are all countries that were involved. So just like that, it is 2 to 1 to 1. We have 3 regular questions left and 1 bonus question, or rather a tiebreaker question. So let's continue onward. We're going to go to my favorite question that I have, not to short sell the other 2, but I think this one's the most fun. One thing that Game of Thrones is predominantly known for, besides just an outrageous number of meaningless sex scenes, is the amount of violence in the show. How many gallons over the show's entire slate of 8 seasons, how many gallons of artificial blood were used? And we're back to Nerdbomber for this one.
I'm going to be oddly specific and say 5,361.
Prime number, I feel like. I don't know for sure. But that bothers me. Techtic?
60 gallons.
I'm going to say this is a trick question. They use human blood. I'm just kidding. No. I'm going to say, what was Nerdbomber's answer again?
5,361.
Okay.
And Techtic, I believe, said 60.
Yeah. I'm going to say, that's not nearly enough. I would say, let's go 4,000.
So before you tell us the answer, Techtic, you realize a gallon is like a gallon of milk, right? And through the entire TV show, they only use 60 gallons.
Well, there were 70 some odd episodes.
I'll tell you, Techtic definitely under, but there were multiple takes of shots too, you have to consider.
And you guys went nuts with the gallons, so.
They did not. In fact, one of them got it exactly. And no, Bomber, you didn't. No, it was not 5,361. It was exactly 4,000 gallons.
What?
So Ben is up to 3 point. I'll tell you what. He hedged, and now he is the front runner. So where we are here, Nerdbomber or Techtic has to get both of these last questions correctly to tie Ben and force the tiebreaker. So let's just get right into it. How many Emmys has Game of Thrones won? Again, throughout its entire 8-season run. I will tell you, it has the record. That may help you. It has the record for most Emmys won by a drama. And now we're on Techtic for
23.
Okay, quick answer over to Mr. Ben.
So Emmys, we're talking about all different categories, correct? So
all different categories.
Right. Let's go with, since I know you don't like prime numbers, 37.
You're right, I don't. Okay. Nerdbomber, we have 23 and 37. What do you have for us?
So let's say maybe they won 3 Emmys a year. It was on for 8 years. Although then it puts me right above Techtic, and I feel like a jerk doing that. I'm going to give him a little bit of wiggle room. I'm going to say 25.
Whoa, a lot of wiggle room there.
We have a winner. 59.
Really?
59. Guys, this show is a big deal. Yeah, I when I said it held the record, I was not joking. 59 Emmys.
When you got that much side boob, you know?
Many Emmys won for Best Drama. I believe Peter Dinklage won a handful of times. The ensemble cast was so large, I think a number of them won Emmys at various points. So with that, Ben, this is a victory lap for you, this last question, but let's do it anyways. What do you say?
Okay.
So the last episode of the show was much maligned. In fact, the entire last season was much maligned. My bonus question, I'll just tell you, was what was the Rotten Tomatoes critic score of the final season? It was 55. People did not like the last season.
That's what I was going to guess.
What was the runtime in minutes of the finale? Aired in May of 2019. And
this is the 6th question, so it's me.
That's correct.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Well, you're probably going to get it right if history is any indication. So just tell us what you're feeling.
Well, I'm feeling like it's one of those Snyder-esque kind of like affairs where we're going. Let's go 180 minutes, so 3 hours. Over to
Nerdbomber.
I'm going to say 102, like they were 2 51-minute episodes spliced together.
I was going to say 103, but you know what? I'll give you some wiggle room.
He's going to say 104.
104.
Well, the joke's on you. You all busted 80 minutes, guys. Not
that
much
was
longer
it?
than a traditional hour-long episode. Yeah, 80 minutes. So, nonetheless, Ben absolutely blow you guys out of the water on that one. Not even close. we went ahead and smacked a guest with knowledge, and he absorbed that energy and shot it right back in Nerdbomber and Techtic's faces.
Just beginner's luck, man. I'm just not a fan.
He's wearing the Black Panther suit.
So if we look at the overall quiz record, since we began record tracking, I believe that brings Ben to 1-0. I feel like we have started tracking it when you were last on the show, but I don't have anything written down. So for all intents and purposes, you are 1-0.
And you're not that far behind me. Is the sad part
Techtic off
for
the
me.
board, 4-5. Nerdbomber to 7-3, and I sit triumphant at 8-2. But percentage-wise, Ben still has me. So that brings us to the end here. We want to thank Ben again so much for being on. Again, check out his podcast, which is in its nascency, coming June 23rd, I believe he said, www.twovaguepodcast, that's two spelled out.com. And thank you all for being here. It's been a real pleasure. Tell your librarian, and also go to the library. Let's just do that, because it's a good place to be. And we will see you next week.